Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jez, and I'm thrilled to have you joining us for another fun-filled episode where we sprinkle a little magic on the world of business and leadership. Each week, we dive into fascinating topics that inspire and educate, all while keeping things lighthearted and enjoyable. Magical Learning has been running successfully as a training and facilitation company for over 20 years and has partnered with global thought leaders like Robin Sharma and John Mattone. So whether you're a seasoned leader, a budding entrepreneur, or just curious about how to make learning magical, there's something here for you. So grab your favorite drink, grab a snack, sit back, because it's time for some magical learning. Now, I'm not going to be doing the magical learning all by myself. I've got a team here, and if you're watching the video on YouTube, which we highly recommend checking out, you'll have already seen them. So I'm going to jump into our CEO. First of all, CEO extraordinaire Grahame, how's your week been?
Hey, Jez. Yeah, it's been good. Thank you. Loving the new intro. I'm a little concerned about people getting all excited and then jumping up. Oh, we've got a team. I've got people to help me. And then it's him again. But anyway, that's your fault, whoever you are. Be here, Jez. It's good to be Friday.
Yes, and absolutely pleased to have you here as well. Allen, our facilitator and a podcast regular. We'd love to have you on. We don't always get you on, so it's always a pleasure to have you on. Al, how have things been since we've last had you on the call?
I've been going great, Jez. I think last time I was on, I was talking about how I ended up on the rocks when I was surfing, and since then I've calmed down a little bit, stayed away from the rocks, and had the best day out on the water. Caught a beautiful wave and was actually able to let go of my board and just run my hand along the wave, and that was one of the most magical moments I've had in a long time.
That is very cool, and that's your own magical learning, I guess, from the most recent past.
It is. Like you say, my learning versus everyone's told me how scary the ocean was, and I've been out there for 2 years now thinking, I don't see what they're all afraid of. I love it. And it was just like becoming one with the wave instead of looking at that wave that was going to get me.
Well, that's so good to hear, Al. And Al, also, for people that haven't checked in recently, Al, you also do work on cranes, you also do work on farms, and you also do work in Pilates. Do you have any updates from any of those segments of your life?
Really enjoying the training in the crane industry. I'm teaching about 8 different courses now, which is blowing me away as well. And I even had an unexpected detour on the way to work yesterday. I travel down the M1 in the morning, it's about 40 minutes, and I'm learning so much about human behaviour, the way some people cut in and out and how I resist the urge. But yesterday morning, it took 2.5 hours to get to work. The M1 was blocked and I got to learn about all the back roads and not stressing about being late for work.
Well, that's very good to hear. It's good to hear that you've come in with a very calm and peaceful mindset, Al. It sounds like you've done a lot of patience training recently, so glad that you're bringing that energy to the podcast today.
Thanks, Jez.
Very wise in the ways of alternate commuting you have become.
Well, Al, you were right. You touched on this in the intro. And we're going to be talking about unexpected detours today as sort of the big theme and what we'll be bringing a little thought to from each of us. But we are doing what's known as a concept Sandbox podcast. Now, this is a very fun one. What we're going to be doing is not just talking about our experiences with unexpected detours, but we're also going to be relating that to a business problem. Now, to have a bit of fun with this, what we like to do is set the business problem in a fantastical realm because A, it means that we get to have fun and look at this business problem in a sort of fun way, but B, it also means that we will not be using brands that we could potentially partner with in the future, and so therefore not upsetting potential future clients, and that's always nice. Grahame, how do you feel about taking an unexpected detour to potentially the Terminator movies? Does that do anything for either of you?
Yeah, we can do that.
Al, have you seen the Terminator movies?
I have seen the Terminator. The other unexpected detour I had was Chevy Chase. Something about vacation, going to Wally World.
Was that the original? That was the original National Lampoon Vacation.
That's the one, yes.
Let's do that. Let's go for Chevy Chase out on the open road. Why not?
Yes.
How bad could it be?
It's a good unexpected detour because you know what, that movie had a lot of unexpected detours.
Certainly did.
It did.
Certainly did.
So, okay, great. So that's interesting. So we're going to have Chevy Chase while he's on the vacation trip. We're just going to create a profession for him because I don't think any of us will have the recall to remember what his character's profession was from that movie. But Chevy Chase, while he's heading on this road trip, the business problem that I'm looking at is that his customers have moved to a cheaper option of his product. So he's got to be working out what he wants to potentially do about that. So that's something he'll be thinking of while he's going on this trip. Perhaps even, actually, to tie it a bit more into the movie, perhaps it's a business that takes people from their city to Wally World. So let's just relate it to what we remember about the plot of the movie. So it's a tour business that takes them to Wally World. Maybe there's a bit of tour stuff on the way, but Chevy Chase is leading the charge there. So Al, keep that percolating in the back of your mind, and we'll go to our other conversation about unexpected detours and see how we can tie them in together. Graham, did you want to kick us off today about what unexpected detours means to you?
The first thing that sort of jumped into my head earlier, and largely from a business perspective, I suppose, was the single scariest unexpected detour we've had in our business. I think it applies to so many people on planet Earth, was COVID. The biggest recent unexpected detour, and a detour in so many respects. I mean, for magical learning, we went from having a lot of programs and workbook with clients over the remainder of the calendar year, this was 2020, to having nothing in the space of 3 days. So every course, every workshop, every program we had scheduled to run over the rest of the year was cancelled because we couldn't be in the same room as other human beings. So that took us down an interesting, very interesting side road that had, I'm just trying to think of some useful sort of analogies. No lighting, like it's just going to riff off probably the Blues Brothers. It's the wrong movie, Graham. We'll go back to Wally World. So running out of fuel. There's no lighting on the road. There's no street signs. I've got no idea where the road actually heads. So it's dark. There's no information available. We're tired. We're a bit stressed, and it's like, where are we going? And what are we going to do? Because everything that we'd done up until then wasn't potentially going to work. Did any of that make sense?
Yes, but what was the outcome?
That's scary. Because I at one stage there I thought, hang on, Graham, you've gone into Latin, so you need to go back a bit. The outcome was realising that, one, we were in the same car together, and when I say we, it was the collective we, it wasn't just Annette and I, it was literally everybody on the team. So getting over the initial, we hadn't taken a wrong turn. The organisation responsible for maintaining the road that we're on had changed their mind about where that road was headed, and they had literally put not quite a U-turn, they just put a new feature in that had us heading off in a different direction. So after the initial panic of what's going on, where are we going, why are we going this way, should we turn around and go back, should we get out of the car, one of the things that helped us stay relatively calm in that space was realising that we had a lot of shared collective wisdom, experience, knowledge in the car. And, it's sort of the old cliche about, well, we'd been through really hard times before. We'd been, not COVID, obviously, but we have been through, as a company, as a business, experiences before that at the time seemed probably worse than COVID, believe it or not. So being able to draw on the fact that we have some resilience, we can figure stuff out. There's a lot of really smart people in the car. One of the things that we did do, and I'm not sure that Clark, sorry, it's just a bit slow, it's a Friday, did this in the movie, but one of the things that we did was we actually decelerated the car temporarily so that we didn't stop. So there was no, well, we'll just stop the car and sit here and start to ferment. But we did slow down so that we could spend a little bit more time thinking about and discussing and asking better questions. So if the road that we were heading on isn't there anymore, we still know where we want to get to. We want to get to Wally World because we believe that's the place that we should be at. What are some of the options that we've got available?
Well, I think, Graham, you've actually given us a great answer there for Clark / Chevy Chase, which is perhaps if the customers have moved to a cheaper option of your product, and in this case, perhaps it's a direct route from whatever city to Wally World, perhaps Chevy Chase's niche is actually a little bit of the scenic route and being like, you know what? You're actually going to have a good time on the trip there. That's what we're going to try and provide. So it's about entertainment. Maybe it's taking them through some other different pit stops or something. And actually about exactly what you're saying, decelerating a little bit and going, you know what? Our niche maybe isn't express. Our niche is good customer service.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing me back to the cheaper competitor thing that I'd just completely... So that was grandma strapped to the top of the car. By the way, listeners, viewers, no, That was not a recommendation or a suggestion. Please don't do that. But I love the idea. When we get into that space as a business owner where we realise that we're losing customers to somebody who's offering a similar product cheaper. Seth Godin talks about it really well. When our product or our service is seen as more of a commodity, and a commodity typically is something that's available from multiple suppliers. So if our service is seen as pretty much the same as all the others, then most human beings are going to go to price. And thanks for bringing me back on track. So yeah, slow the car down, and let's have a conversation, ask some better questions about, okay, so how do we reposition our service in terms of how we transport people to Wally World in a way that takes us completely away from everybody else, so they can't look at our service in the same way they do with the others, and therefore price becomes less of a consideration. And Al actually has some great ideas around that.
What's coming up for me listening to you, Grahame, is different, where something I see a lot for farmers is we don't do succession planning very well. Yet after succession planning, a lot of farmers just continue to do the same thing they've always done. They knuckle down, they go harder, versus, like you say, try something different. And to me, I've seen so many examples where people have tried something different with no idea how it was going to go. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but sometimes it leads to amazing things. And leading that back to Chevy Chase, I think it might have been the second movie where they were being chased by the truck, and we're led to believe this guy's out to get them. When he finally catches up, we realise he's found the wedding ring that Clark's wife lost way back at the servo at the start of the movie. The thing we were scared of, it was the gift that we were seeking the whole way along.
Wow,
very interesting.
That is so zen, Al, on a Friday. I like it.
I think Al is bringing a very zen energy to a zenergy, if you will, to the podcast. So I think it's a great time to pass that over to Al. And Al, did you have any thoughts on unexpected detours?
They were my thoughts I just gave.
Great. You were too smooth for me, Al. You were too smooth for me.
I was. Probably the only thing to add there, Jez, I remember Danette asked me many, many years ago when I was on a very unexpected detour, what is the gift in this for you? That has been something that's helped me look for the different thing. And like Grahame was saying, we're heading down a path we've never been down before, no idea where we're going. But I've seen so many examples of things that have popped up along the way. You know, to me, that's, I guess, why I'm no longer farming. I'm in an industry that was only ever a dream, but until I let go of the old one, the new one wasn't available for me.
Yeah, the unexpected change that you've made, and even having to let go of that old thing, that's a bit of an unexpected detour. I guess, is it all right if we just pick at that a little bit more? How did you make that decision?
One thing I sort of think is the pain has to be bad enough. How do they say? The pain of changing becomes less than the pain of staying where we are. Where for me, once we'd been through succession planning, it wasn't the dream I always wanted to be. It just became a job. And again, I see so many people, even in the construction industry, where they're doing the same job they've always done. I spoke to a young lady yesterday who was in my dogging class. She said she spent something like $40,000 of training to become a beauty technician and hated it. And I was so amazed to think, wow, she could let go of all that, where I've seen so many people say, no, I've done the uni course, I've got this far, I can't pull out now. Where she's changing at such a young age into something that she actually loves.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I think kind of taking it back to what's the gift here that you were just mentioning before, I think the good thing about that is that maybe Chevy can look at this situation and go, maybe there were things about the old business that I didn't like. So what's the gift here? How can I actually bring, since we're resetting a little bit, how can I bring a bit more of things that I'm going to get energy from to the business, to Wally World?
I love that. And again, sort of taking it away from the money, like we talk about, it's always about the money, it's the cheapest price, versus what can we add. I was talking to a guy who was getting some product made in Japan. And when the deal was nearly done, he said, for an extra 20%, what can I get? And the Chinese guy said, I've never had that asked. He said, everybody else says, what can I get for a cheaper price? And he was amazed how much quality the Chinese could add when he said, I'm prepared to pay 20% better. And he got a product that blew his mind.
Wow, that's really amazing.
It is, it was just so unexpected. He thought, I'll just ask. And we have the attitude that the Chinese just produce cheap rubbish. He was saying it's because that's what we asked for. When he asked for quality, he said they had some things up their sleeve that we didn't even know about.
Wow, how fascinating.
Nice. What about you, Jez? I mean, you've experienced some unexpected detours in the last 12 months or so?
Yeah,
Shall I
well,
throw that in at you? Throw that
yeah.
at you.
Well, I mean, like I've done. I guess I was going to relate. You know what? All of mine relates to, I guess, in some ways, the last 12 months. So I'll take it much further back than that. My unexpected detours are how Guitar Hero and Lego movie making led us to this point where we are at right now, doing this podcast. So I was going to talk about that. So when I was probably about 7, Danette and Graham got me a Lego movie making set, which was a stop motion kit, and that was, it basically had some structures. It was sort of modeled around Steven Spielberg, so it was to do with Jurassic Park. So there was some Jurassic Park elements you could add, but the idea was really just a stop motion kit where you could kind of record and everything. And what that did was it got me acquainted at a very early age with video editing and creating movies and even audio editing to some degree, because it was all sort of within that program. It was sort of like a slightly more refined Windows Movie Maker, but also with the user interface built for kids. So it was not too hard to use, which was really good. And then pair that with Guitar Hero, which is a game that I don't know if people know. I think most people have a general idea of what Guitar Hero is, but it was a game on PlayStation where you had a guitar-shaped controller and 5 buttons, and you essentially mimicked playing guitar. And that led me down a path of liking rock music, which I think then ultimately I learned guitar, and that ultimately led me to listen to a bit more and have a better understanding of audio engineering. Put those two together, and now we're doing a video podcast. And I would say the skills that I acquired from both those things as unexpected detours have actually converged, fortunately for me, in something that I like doing. But those two unexpected detours from, I guess, my childhood have ended up being the things that have led to the current path, which is not a detour anymore. So, yeah.
Nice. I do remember the Lego Movie Maker kit, being obliged to step around it a lot because it was set up in very important locations around the house or even out at the farm, and quiet on set became a thing. And Guitar Hero was brilliant. Guitar Hero put the plastic into air guitar. I think it's one way of describing it. Yeah. But so Jess, I'm curious, and I really appreciate the fact that you shared that, and I love being able to sort of draw that link from way back then and to where we are today. How much influence do you think it's almost like the chicken and egg. So did that detour, like in getting the movie maker kit, do you feel that awakened an interest that you weren't aware of, or was the interest already there and it just amplified that interest in making movies and creating stories and all of that sort of stuff?
That's interesting. I think it's along the lines of, I think it was right place, right time. So I don't know if at a different time it would have been the same. Because one thing that I really liked was watching like the behind the scenes of movies and essentially looking at how they achieve certain things and then trying to recreate that with the Lego Movie Maker to the best of the ability. So in some ways it was like a puzzle in a way, like a problem solving thing. And then I think that I was always creatively inclined anyway, so this was a pretty good avenue. So I don't know, I think I'd say that was kind of the answer. So I'd say if DVDs, like if it happened now, if I was 7 now, it might not be the same because special features aren't as much of a thing now with streaming. It's much harder to sort of go watch the behind the scenes or what have you. So yeah, so I don't know, I think it was just a lucky convergence, honestly.
But I love just the fact that you picked up on the special features, the edits, the deleted scenes, all of that sort of stuff, how the movie was made. Because you're right, it was such a big part back then of the movie production process and then the media that was made available to the general public. Whereas today, probably not so much. Happy accident? Maybe. Don't know. And Al, in a similar vein, Al, is it fair to say that maybe back when you were 7, part of one of your dreams was being involved with, heavy machinery?
I think it was, Graham. Like, I remember coming home, the rubbish tip from the local rubbish tip happened to be in our paddock. So when Dad was ploughing the paddock, we would hang around the rubbish tip and I would bring home old Tonka trucks with 2 wheels, and I still remember those days.
So I love that. If we go back to the scenario, sort of Chevy Chase family in the car, needing to think about how we get people to Wally World and the unexpected detail sort of thing. So I wonder whether is it important, do you think, for us to, and I don't know whether it's having the right people in the car with you or just maybe slowing down enough to recognise and appreciate the people that you have in the car.
I mean, that's probably true. There's probably, if we're talking about going from an efficiency model to like more of a customer-based model, there's probably a lot of things that aren't being tapped into with your staff already. Because if it's down an efficiency model, most likely people are just probably doing one job. Whereas I think with this more customer-focused model, you can kind of open yourself up to allowing people to have a bit more of a broad job. So you might get more out of people and maybe see talents where other people may have them that are sort of hidden to you at the time. Like, for example, I was just going to say that reminds me, I used to work at a branding agency and then I was starting to do animation. And after a while, I put my hand up and said, hey, can I do a logo animation for these people? Let me just try. And then that actually ended up allowing me to do more animation, which is more of what I wanted to do than the actual job I was hired for. So it was a bit of a win-win for both of us where I got to do something more that I like doing and they got to add an additional feature onto things that they were sort of selling. So I think that it can be sort of a win-win as well if we tap into that sort of that thing with our current employees.
And picking up on your idea there, Grahame, of the people in the car, when you said that, I'm picturing there's a couple of annoying people sitting in the back of the picture in my car. But again, coming back to that, what is the gift they bring? There's one particular guy at work I'm thinking of, he's teaching me to, or what I'm thinking of, it's to say no, We've been talking about this for 12 months, nothing's changing. How about we let that go and move on? Versus, I've got some people at work that I just look at, they're the people I want to hang around, they're the people who maintain the standards, they know what they want and they're happy to put that out there regardless of what everybody else is going to say. They're not worried about the criticism, and having those people is such a great role model for me.
Nice. So we go from looking for the ejector button in the car to maybe slowing down completely and actually, just to overuse the analogy, turning to have a conversation with the person in the back seat. Or maybe not turning, but just having a conversation. I think, go back to Jess's point before, being okay with allowing people in our team to step outside of their recognised role or their documented role, whatever their position description says, and taking the risk that, or just creating the opportunity where they can do something that they don't normally do because, hey, that might work brilliantly. Yeah, it's worked pretty well for a little company called Google. If the urban myth is correct, then a couple of two or three of their most successful, most profitable products have come from employees who were spending 20% of their time not thinking about Google. It's the cliche think outside the box thing. I wonder whether the annoying people sitting in the back of your car, Al, whether they may have actually lived closer to me at one point, funnily enough. And then, of course, you realise that it's not them at all. Again, go back to the Zen thing, that sometimes the people who trigger us the most are potentially our greatest teachers. But to bring all of this back to that scenario about cheaper competitors and unexpected detours and how do we leverage this, how do we see or find the gift in this? A lot of the time we can't personally, which again is why giving other people in the car an opportunity, not necessarily to take over the steering wheel, because how old was Rusty in the first movie, the son? Maybe not put him directly behind the wheel, but perhaps he could offer some suggestions on directions they could take to, and he could almost certainly offer some suggestions on how we could change up the way that we transport people to Wally World to make our service look more attractive.
Can justify a helicopter to get to work, Grahame.
I was just going to say, it could also be a good opportunity for like a bit of a culture reset is what you're also kind of saying there, Grahame. So that's another kind of way to look at it, like how can we think outside the box? This is forcing us to think outside the box. So what extra things can we kind of bring in, and how can we sort of reset the culture? Well, I think that we've absolutely smashed through this today, guys. So great work. We think we've solved this for Chevy, but I do want to grab some final thoughts as well before we wrap up here today. So Al, did you have any final thoughts on unexpected detours and maybe how Chevy and his business could sort of any insights you've had around them?
The thing coming up for me, Jez, is take risks. It's to head off down that path where there are no lights, there are no signs. It's buy that Lego movie kit, have a play with it, see how it goes. Maybe it doesn't work for us, but the person next to us might pick it up and do something wonderful with it. And in the end, I think life is a game. If we can all just end up at Wally World having a good time, there's some pretty scary rides there. Life is good.
Well, that's awesome, Al, and thank you so much for being on the pod. Always good to see you again.
Thanks, Jez. It's been great being here again.
No worries. And Graham, did you have any final thoughts on Unexpected Detours and Chevy Chase's business to Wally World?
Yeah, I think the first is that we should reach out to Chevy and get him on the podcast. Pretty sure he's still with us. Secondly, if that's not possible, we should at least invoice him for the free promotion that he's getting through this. A couple of things that Al mentioned earlier I thought were genius. The pain of not changing needs to be greater than the pain of changing in order sometimes to take action, and it's still so true. And the sunk cost thing, that sometimes we don't let go of, again, bringing all this back to the business scenario of needing to change the way our service is perceived by our customers because somebody else is cheaper. The idea of sunk costs and our brain often will hang on to something tightly because we've already invested so much in it, and our brain does not want to let it go, even though it may not be serving us anymore. It's like, well, we invested $250,000 in buying this bus and fitting it out and making it fun, and in training our staff so that we could transport people safely, and we even put a little TV in the bus, blah blah blah, just to get them there. And we've sunk so much money into that, it doesn't feel right to change it. So I think just being aware that the sunk cost thing can sometimes hold us back from accepting that this unexpected detour could be the single greatest gift that we've ever experienced. And great topic, Jez, love it. So thanks to both of you. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Thank you both so much, and great insights today, Graham. It's been a fun one. Thanks for sharing the story also around COVID. I think that was quite relevant to Chevy and sort of and his business. So it was very helpful. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that there's something about, if you can embrace that now, it might be the scenic route. That could be also kind of there's a bit of fun to be had there, and just understanding the positives and negatives of a changing situation. It's important to keep those positives sometimes in mind as well. Well, we want to say thank you to everybody that's been listening and sharing. Our podcast is going very well. We're on YouTube. We're over 3,500 subscribers, so please go check us out over there. You get the video version of this as well, which is very nice. To everybody that's been sharing, thank you so much. And as always, everybody, have a magical week.